So welcome everyone to Startup Stories. We missed last month, so we're glad to be back. Just a little introduction. iProv, well, let's say this first. I'm Miranda Daly, and I'm the marketing and event coordinator for The Conductor. We're an entrepreneurial support organization, and today we're in the makerspace on the UCA campus. It's a cool place to come check out 3D printing, laser engraving, CNC machine. Great place to do Christmas gifts. I know I've been on top of that. But today we're joined by iProv. iProv is a marketing agency located in Little Rock. RJ and Roxanne Martino founded iProv in 2001 by building custom apps and websites on a project-by-project basis. The company has grown into a full-service marketing firm, and they serve dozens of clients in Arkansas and beyond. And today we are joined by Patrick and Jordan. So Patrick has worked for businesses of all sizes, including Fortune 500 brands. Over the course of 20 years, Patrick has held leadership roles at several agencies, and he works to make sure the leadership of a business has a vision that aligns with the actions of fun. He serves on the Guardian Board of Easter Seals, Arkansas, is an active member of Holy Souls Catholic Church, and a board member for Junior Achievements of Arkansas. Jordan is a partner in the VP of Sales and Marketing for iProv. During his time at iProv, Jordan has consulted, created, and executed growth initiatives for both large and small businesses. His specialty is consulting with leadership teams and companies of all sizes on how to create a long-term vision that ties to specific business strategies and tactics that will help them achieve their individual and organizational goals. So with that, I'll turn it over to y'all, and y'all can click through.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was a long-winded way of saying that a lot of what Pat and I do are professional third graders. So we get in these rooms and ask organizations why until we cannot ask why anymore. So we're very happy and privileged to be here, and we're very excited to talk to you guys. So.
Yeah, we're really excited in particular to talk about entrepreneurship. What's fun about iProv, or what's interesting about iProv, and Jordan and I were talking about this before we got here today, is iProv in particular, more than just about any company that I've been at in my career, has a knack for producing entrepreneurs. In the last 5 years, we've had 5 staff members go on to found their own companies, some of which we continue to contract with. At least 2 of those 5 we still actively work with in different capacities. And our founders, which we'll talk a little bit more, have gone on to found other companies as well. So iProv itself was the genesis. That has now grown into a holding company which owns a rail and logistics company, a law firm, a technology firm, and 2 real estate private equity firms too. So we really like starting and growing things, and we really, really like people that want to start and grow things.
And I'm trying to click to a point.
Right beside that saw, did it work?
Tell you what, Jake, you want to just be our slide man?
I'll click it.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah, next slide.
It's just beeping at me.
Oh,
there we go.
One more time. There we go.
Well, this is what Pat mentioned too, is, Miranda mentioned in the intro that we've been in business since 2001. And I always say, especially in this space, but I don't even think this is unique to our space. It's a marketing agency where, the best organizations that we work with and work for, we talk about this concept of always being in perpetual startup mode. Not being too married to your processes, your procedures, even your people, because your people won't be married to you either for that long, not these days. But being in that mode where you're always looking to continuously and constantly improve.
Well, what's interesting too is we work with some really large organizations, and it's really hard to think of a large organization, a couple hundred employees, offices all over the country. It's hard to think of that as a startup, right? But if you think about, the teams that work in there, a lot of them do sort of operate like startups. The little business units that are constantly looking for an edge, they've got to figure out ways to pivot all the time. And that's where we do a whole lot of our work, is figuring out how to keep that sort of startup spirit alive inside those teams, and always looking for the next place where they could pivot.
So our goal today is, one, to talk a little bit about kind of really quickly iProv's history, but then talk about kind of how we keep that startup mentality going and how we manage, and Jake, our social media directors here, he'll tell you, how we manage such a large workload with such a limited amount of people. So we're going to hop into it. Before we do, really quickly, how many people in here own or run their own business? Anybody? How many
Anybody here run a business unit, sort of responsible for your own P&L, or finding a market to market to?
That works?
It's close enough.
Listen, I very loosely do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
History and about us, so that's perfect. Like we mentioned, our two founders, RJ and Roxanne Martino, founded the organization in 2001.
They were babies, literally.
Babies. They were 19 years old, still in college. They had this business when they finished their college degrees, whenever they went to law school. They're both very much still involved in the organization, but not on a day-to-day basis, because they're both serial entrepreneurs. They both want to go out and do other things. So at any given point right now, RJ's not only involved with iProv, but 5 to 6 other different types of organization. Roxanne now runs her own law firm, in addition to another 2 organizations that she's either getting off the ground or actively running at any given time. So this mindset of always working from a startup mentality, always having that entrepreneur type of organizational spirit, has literally been built into the organization since day one. So those are founders. As far as the active members of the people that are working day to day in iProv, this is what this looks like. And I'm going to bring this chart up a couple times, especially once we get into what the workload is for an organization like us, and you'll understand why it's important for us to have that entrepreneurial mindset and to always be startup minded and reevaluating processes. So we've got Patrick, our COO. Patrick is also the COO of the other 6 companies that RJ actively runs.
Just the holding company. I mean, I ended up playing an operational role in all of it. Yeah, just and Jordan and I are both partners in the holding company and our other ventures too. But Jordan's our VP of Sales and Marketing. He is responsible for hunting and making sure that we have new people to talk to on a regular basis. He also this year took over our accounts department again. He used to have that role, and he gave it up for a little while and decided he wanted to take it back on. And so he also makes sure that everything that we promise a client actually gets done. He is a very, very busy and very talented guy. Then we got Sarah. She makes sure that everything, all the trains run on time, everything's on budget. She is very much one of those people that if she never left her house again, she'd be okay. We sort of talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
As long as everything's running fine, Sarah's very happy. Jake is our social media director. I know that there are people in the room that already know Jake. He doesn't need a whole lot of explanation, but social media is the perfect job for Jake because I don't know anyone more social that's not in sales than Jake. Greer is our account manager. She also does a ton of SEO and website work for us. Incredibly valuable. We would have a very, very hard time doing what we do for all of our clients without Greer working to keep them thinking about the bigger picture. That's really what an account manager's job is clients want to get down into the weeds. They want to think about the really small things that really don't make a big difference to their customers. And it's Greer's job to get their heads up out of the trenches and looking back out on the horizon. And then we've got Samantha. Samantha is a rare hybrid. So Samantha sits right in between Greer and Sarah and make sure that these 2 very different worlds, these oil and vinegar worlds, communicate well. And so Sam is very gifted from an operational standpoint. She knows how to get work done. She's also very gifted at communication because not only does she have to communicate requirements that Greer gets from the client to production, she's got to communicate production requirements back to accounts and to customers. So Sam has to be the no person most of the time. Don't envy her at all. And then Scott Cross is a client consultant. He is, he works for Jordan and he's out there meeting and greeting and trying to find us new work, new challenges, and new opportunities all the time. Very small team that actually work for us full time. There's about 20 other contractors across the globe. that we work with. We've got a small development team in northern India. We've got a couple of VAs in different parts of the world. We've even got some in the States contractors that work for us in different teams. And we try to keep things very lean, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, so at any given point, everybody in those circles that are on the bottom line, besides Scott, manage anywhere between 4 to 8 different contractors of their own. So the way we've structured it very much is Jake has his social media world. So hopefully, if we're doing our jobs properly, we're helping Jake kind of run his own little social media company within iProv, because he's recruiting new talent, he's finding people that match up and align with what the deliverables that we have for our clients. Sarah's doing the same thing from a production standpoint. She has an entire team of editors and copywriters that she's managing, tasking out, working the budgets on. So we very much, and this is a new system this is a total, going back to the first slide that we look at, a total pivot from the way that we ran the organization 6 years ago. We had a whole bunch of doers in the office and only a couple of directors. For all intents and purposes, titles aside, everybody on the screen is essentially a director over their own individual department.
Yeah, I think everybody's heard the phrase, too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
We have all chiefs.
All chiefs. And it's that way by design.
Yeah.
One of the things that we as sort of the leadership team find really hard to communicate, and I'm sure that other small businesses are like this too, if they're structured similar to us, and maybe I'm wrong, but everybody, most people come into a job and they think of themselves as a doer. That's where they add value to the organization. If you are at the organization long enough and you get to management, you have to sort of be trained that your value is not in the doing of the work, but the getting the work done, figuring out how that gets done most effectively, most efficiently. And we're actually bringing them in and on day one, trying to convince them you're not doers. In fact, I don't want you doing. If you're doing, we're doing it wrong. We want you thinking about how you get it done. And that doesn't sound like a big mindset shift, but you can ask Jake. It takes years to sort of drill that, from kindergarten, sort of, I hate to call it brainwashing, but yeah, it's sort of brainwashing. That my value is in what I do, not in getting it done. And so we work really hard as a leadership team to make sure that we remind our people that that's the value that they bring to our clients and to the organization, is thinking about new ways to get it done in the most efficient and effective manner.
Yeah, it's very much an outcome-based system. If you can get everything done in 30 hours a week, God bless you. Go use the other 10 we care about the outcomes. You're not necessarily how long you're in front of a computer screen. But did you produce the outcomes that we expect you to produce at the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, beginning of the quarter, beginning of the year?
Well, and what we're hearing a lot too from clients like these, especially as COVID sort of turned the world upside down. We were talking before we got started about hybrid work situations and whether or not you like being remote or being in the office. We went fully remote on March 12th of 2020, and we're not going back. For us, it just doesn't make sense. The talent pool is global now, and they're easy to find. There's lots and lots of marketplaces where you can just go say, I need a designer, and I'm going to go get one. Once again, the hard part is finding people that think like that, or training people that think like that. As a business owner or as a leader in a business, getting through that mindset of focusing on the outcomes, focusing on the results, and not caring about where people are in the day. It's a hard mindset shift for a lot of business leaders.
Well, and especially from the standpoint of somebody that's trying to start something on their own, where they want to go out there, is focusing on those outcomes first and foremost, and then working backwards from there.
Yeah.
These are a couple of kind of our larger clients, but at any given time, we're working actively on about anywhere between 30 to 35 different clients, whether from a project perspective or whether we are their entire marketing arm. So enough about us. I want to spend the rest of this time kind of talking more about how we think and how we deliver the work. Because whenever Miranda and her team asked us to come here and be a part of this, that was the first thing that we thought of, was what can we lend to the group? What can we lend to people in the room or folks that might be watching this? And it's less about what iProv does and who iProv is and who we work for, but more of that outcome-based methodology and mindset on how can we get the most amount of things done with, I don't want to say the least amount of people, but as less overhead as possible. How can we train folks like Jake to do the best job that he can when he's with us? And I think Patrick mentioned earlier, we've had 5 employees in the past 5 or 6 years that have left iProv not for another job, but to start their own business. How can we make sure that, and we work actively with 3 of those 5 now on delivering stuff for our clients. So, how can we maintain that mindset, and how can we at least give somebody watching this in the room one little nugget that they could go out and use tomorrow to implement some of the things that we're talking about?
So for all intents and purposes, iProv is not a marketing or advertising agency. We're a factory. We just happen to work in the marketing and advertising industry. And when I say that we're a factory, we are literally a factory. If you went, what's a factory in Conway, Jay? All right, so you went down to Kimberly-Clark. I'm going to assume that they've got some sort of lean production methodology because most manufacturers do these days. If you went into Kimberly-Clark and you saw the way that they made paper products down the road, it would be really similar to the way that we make deliverables for our clients, whether that's blog posts, social media, video, etc. We have a very tight production process based on sort of standardized stages. Everyone is measured based on effectiveness and efficiency and balancing those 2 things each week. It is very much run like a factory. We take raw materials and we produce finished goods out of those raw materials. And just to give you an idea about how much we produce, I'll let Jordan go through the numbers, but it's quite a bit when you consider how small we really are.
Yeah. These people could not produce this amount of stuff on a consistent basis every year at the quality that needs to be produced without just burning all these folks into the ground. So we have to have that factory mindset that Pat talks about. We have to have that lean manufacturing mindset so that we can deliver on 350 1,000-word blog articles every single year for a lot of different types of clients. It's really tough for one of our people to be an OBGYN expert and then walk into 10 Fitness and talk about the Black Friday sale that's going to happen. But we have to, and there's no way that individual can do that if some of these things aren't taken care of on the back end by using that manufacturing mindset.
The other part of that too is we say not only are we a factory, our goal is to be as good as a Toyota factory. We work on yearly contracts. We know exactly what we're going to produce for our clients. But if you think the market is fickle and demands that you're constantly changing things, if you're only having to produce for one segment of the market, you can sort of build in some flex for that change. We build for between 30 and 35 different areas of that market. And even when we niche down and we say, hey, we really only work for nonprofits and healthcare and maybe a couple others, you still have all sorts of shifting demands all the time with a layer of personalities on top of that who all have their own particular interests in how these things have to get done. So we have to be very disciplined. So rule number 1 is you have to be very, very disciplined about how you do what you must do in order to be as productive and effective as possible. And this is something that we sort of believe across all of our companies. And I imagine that most business owners that are successful already know this. But for those that don't understand it, a business's value is the sum of its systems. Your ability to turn a profit efficiently comes down to how good your systems are. And if your systems aren't good and you're reliant on somebody coming in as an expert, your profit's going to go way down because you're going to have to pay that person an incredible amount of money. Now, we pay people well for their skill sets, but we're able to work below some market norms because we provide a great place to work. We make it really easy to get your job done every day. We encourage you to take time off because we're going to make sure that in that 40-hour week, we don't overload you. And when you are overloaded, we're going to shove you out the door and say, great, take a week off, we'll see you in a week. And we're able to do that because our systems allow for that kind of flex. So for business owners that are saying things, and we hear it all the time, I can't find anybody to come to work for me, I can't afford the ones that I can get to work for me. I would not focus on the people that are outside of your circle of influence. Focus on what you and your business can do to either make onboarding faster, to make it super clear what everybody should be doing at every minute of the day without you having to be over their shoulder, because nobody loves that. Figure out ways to give them autonomy to get it done. Encourage the right kind of laziness even. You know, there's like an old saying, and I don't even know where it comes from, but what is it? If you're smart and you're lazy, I'm going to make you a general in my army because you're going to get it done. Or there's some Bill Gates quote that's something like that too. If I have a job that has to get done, I give it to the lazy person because they're always going to figure out the easiest way to get it done. I want the lazy folks to come work for me because I'm going to demand that the production happens, but I don't care how they get it done. As long as it meets the quality level, as long as it's on budget, as long as it's on time, the rest of it is up to them.
Said another way, we talk about we're outcome-based. Your outcomes are only as good as your internal systems.
Yep.
Your outcomes and your product are only as good as the systems that you have in place in order to produce those desired outcomes. So that's what we want to talk about today, and it really starts with a program that we've developed called Vista. And for everybody watching this or that's in there that is familiar with anything from the conductor, I would encourage you to talk to them. We both have similar mindsets on how to grow and how to build and how to think about an organization, which is why this partnership is makes so much sense for us and them. But that very first thing that we always look at is we funnel everything through this Vista process that we have. And we're marketers, so we love acronyms, but it's vision, strategy, tactics, and alignment. And that's where we start. Everything is vision. Pat mentioned finding the laziest people. It's not a core value of ours, but one of the first things we talk about vision is, where do you want to go, right? What is the summit that you want to climb, and who do you need in order to help you get there? And what are their core values? What are their guiding purpose? Does it align with your guiding purpose? What core competencies are you looking for, and what do they have internally? And those things have to kind of match up and be married with you as an organization, or that partnership is not going to last, right? If I'm agnostic and I don't go to church, but I try to date somebody that goes to church 3 days a week, it might be fun for both of us for a little bit, but it's not going to match up. But it's the same thing as an organization. So one of the first things that we tell folks whenever they come to us, whether they're established businesses or not, is all the things that we talked about, outcome-based, all that's great, but it has to start with what is the vision for the organization.
The other thing we encourage business owners that we work with is put it in plain English. There are lots and lots of consultants that will come and write a vision or a mission statement for you, and it sounds like, pill instructions or something. Put it in really plain and simple English. The knuckle draggers of the world like me will thank you for that, because we'll be able to rally behind what you're trying to do. If we can't understand the concept, we'll show up for a paycheck, but we're not going to get excited about it. We're not going to find new ways to innovate. And that's what we're all trying to do these days, is find ways to motivate people to continue to improve what we started and to innovate our products so that we can serve more people, we can find more customers. And like Jordan said, core values are not only for who you hire. We sort of use this phrase, core values are what attract people to your business. And people's a very broad term. That's customers, that's vendors, that is the people working in the business, contractors. It is sort of the filter through which you view the world, and therefore the filter in which you view what you do every day.
From there, now you can get into a strategy. And so many people skip that first vision part. it's great for us to talk about the factory and the outcomes that we want, how we deliver on those things. But without a really clearly established vision and a clearly articulated vision, it's going to be real tough to figure out what those systems need to be. So the next thing we always focus on is strategy. You know, it's just a big word for a plan. What the hell is your plan? You know,
Yeah.
you hear strategy all the time. What's the plan? You know, and that's really what the strategy is. And
Jordan, if we just call it a plan, we can't charge $1,000 an hour.
I know it doesn't match
So,
up with the
yeah.
list of things.
Exactly.
VIPTA. So it's also a plan, hopefully, that states the path to a desired outcome. So if we know the summit that we want to get to, well, literally, what's the plan to get there? You know, if you know, somebody in here, somebody watching this wants to start a business and they know that they want to supplement their salary that they're making now, cool. What's that number? Put it down, you know? And then what is the plan to get there? What are the steps that you're going to take in order to make sure that you can do that? We also like to break down those into long-term focus areas and short-term objectives. So I want to focus on supplementing my salary with this business that I want to start. Okay, well, what are the short-term objectives that you need to deliver on in order to get to that point? And it sounds really simple, but you would be surprised even how many larger businesses that
Couldn't
we
tell you
work
what
with
they want to do in the next 12 months.
and have no idea what that means on a quarter-to-quarter or month-to-month basis.
Well, you know, one of the common themes that you're going to notice through this is we tend to work really atomically. What's the smallest thing that we can focus on that will help us grow the bigger organism, right? And how do all those things connect? And so as we sort of talk through this, just sort of keep that idea in mind, that what is sort of the smallest thing that I can work on today that will have an impact on the week? What's the thing that if I finish this week will improve the outcomes for the month or for the quarter? If we complete this quarter, what is that going to do for our year and our 10-year objective? That in itself is a really powerful concept that not everybody understands, because they've got 25 things on their to-do list and we've got to get these things done because another 25 are coming tomorrow.
Because at the end of the day, you know, all these 4 things that we have on the screen are going to you're always going to be limited by these factors. Again, that's why it's so important to have a system that helps deliver on the outcomes that you want. Because time, energy, attention, and resources are never going to be unlimited. Whether we're a 20-person shop or a 10-person shop. Whether you're a solopreneur or it's you and a business partner that's doing this. There's always going to be a limit on, I always say there's so many give-a-shits to give every day. And at a certain point, that limit's going to run out. And I'm just done with it. If not, it's just going to be a really stressful existence and I don't want to do it. From there, then you can start looking at those tactics. Then you can start figuring out tactically what systems do you need to build, what systems or strategies you need to put into place in order to get to your goal.
And this is where every business owner wants to spend all of their time.
Well, this is where a lot of folks start too, because
Yeah.
they think, I just got to do. I got to get up and I got to do. And there is value in that. But so many people start with the tactics. What do I need to do on Facebook to sell X, Y, and Z? What do I need to do on this? Oh, I need to. All that's fine, but if you don't have a clearly articulated and planned vision, then you're just doing tactics for the sake of doing tactics. Because at the end of the day, if we've got our vision, we know the path that we need to go. The tactics are literally the steps that you take in order to get there. And tactics are going to change quite often. You know, we're going to hit a roadblock on this path to our mountaintop. And we need to make sure that tactically we're agnostic enough to be able to know that, okay, well, I'm going to have to take this path and it's going to take me a little bit longer to get there. You know, or I need to map out another route that I hadn't planned. And you just have to do that. You do have to be tactically agile. But so many folks start with the tactical.
Yeah. Well, and the other side of that too is we said we try to operate like a Toyota factory. You know, one of Toyota's operating principles is continuous improvement. We look at things that need to be changed or improved all the time. And I'm sure it wears out our people sometimes. I don't know. Hopefully Jake will be honest with us. because ultimately they have a lot of the responsibility for all of those deliverables, thinking about the improvements that need to be made or changes coming down the road, you just kind of, that's where the vision becomes even more important, because you can get their heads up off the desk and say, if we continue to make these improvements, if we continue to focus here, this is where we're going to get. And I promise you, things are a lot better here than they are now. And that's why it's worth a little bit of extra thinking, a little bit of extra doing, or maybe it's just upending the shop altogether and moving over to a different system and methodology. Sometimes you just have to do that.
A tactical example here is, in our shop, the way we think about everything we do from a marketing perspective are on these little campaign bubbles. And that sounds really simple, but so many people just, I need to post here because I need to post here. Okay, stop. What's the vision for this specific campaign? What's the strategy? Who do we need to attract? And who are we trying to get in front of? Who are we trying to talk to? And how do they talk? Not how do we talk, how do they talk? How do they absorb information? Then we can start to think of things in these little campaign bubbles as opposed to just tactically doing things for the sake of doing things. And more importantly too, carrying it back to the very beginning, how does each one of these campaigns, if we decide to deliver on them, and if we get the success that we want out of them, how does it tie back into your larger vision?
Once again, he sees really atomic. And this is where you start to see the connective tissue and sort of, it almost feels a little manipulative when you see it on paper here. If you've ever been on your phone and you've seen some ad for something you said and you thought your phone was listening to you, I promise it wasn't. It's because some marketer thought through, I want to trigger this system to happen if this person in this age group is near somebody and the algorithm picks it up. Then they're going to start seeing ads for things like my pillar post about this thing that they think it is, and I'm going to send them to my website. And hopefully they're going to go to a landing page associated with it where they'll give me their email address, and then they're going to get on my email list, and I'm going to communicate with them until they tell me to unsubscribe, ad nauseum, ad nauseum, ad nauseum. And we're just going to continue to work you down that funnel until we get the desired outcome that we want.
Yeah. So for example, what we have on the screen here is an example of kind of how one of the pieces in our factory work, and how we take kind of these campaign bubbles and say, okay, how can we create this one big thing up here that we can use in 20 different ways down the rest of the factory line if we're going to continue with this factory analogy? What's the one machine that we need to build that can produce 5 different vehicles throughout the lifespan of this assembly line? So that's one of the ways that we do it as a marketing agency, but that I would encourage other people to think about how they would do it for your business. What's the big thing over here that you can produce that's going to create dividends across multiple platforms, multiple people, multiple channels, whatever buzzword you want to use at the end of that? What's the big rock? What's the Thanksgiving dinner that you can make that you can eat off of for a week after?
So what's interesting is going back to Toyota. I'm sorry, I'm a big Toyota manufacturer fan. One of the key differentiators that Toyota saw when they sort of came up with their Toyota production system in the 40s after World War II is they looked at supermarkets and they said, how do we change over in the middle of production? Because if you went to a Ford or a GM plant, they made trucks for a day and then they made cars for a day, and they didn't change over in the middle of a shift because it took hours to change over. If you ran a stamping press, you stamped out all the bumpers for that month's trucks, in a day, and then you switched over the stamps and you started pressing them. Toyota couldn't operate that way. They didn't have the orders, they didn't have the manpower, and so they had to figure out how to be able to switch quickly. That was their sort of keystone process. And so what's interesting about it is now there's actually competitions in Japanese factories for things like changeovers, and they run them like NASCAR runs pit crews. And so in a Toyota plant, like a stamping press changeover takes about 15 minutes, where even in like a Ford plant today, it takes an hour. And so they're able to build a Camry and then build a Tundra and then build a Corolla because they know how to change over the line for each car. And so think about that sort of keystone process that is like this pillar post. It's the big thing that if you get right, everything else is going to be so much easier. that sort of atomic thinking again, right?
Totally. Again, that factory mindset. And everything that Pat just mentioned is important, but also, Toyota fanboy, think about the longest lasting car that you can get. You know, they're not only doing this stuff and churning it out, you know, the outcome is they want to be able to do that effectively at the factory level, but also create something that's the best quality that that person can get for their dollar. And that's what we're focused on when we talk about outcomes, bringing kind of that outcome conversation back. The very last part of that we always talk about is alignment. And alignment happens when all of these things come together, but when it's also kind of clearly articulated. So whether you are on your own or you have a small company or you even have a large company, we talk a lot about alignment. If you've got a clearly articulated vision, you know what your strategy needs to be, you've got a set of tactics that we looked at that you know that you will help you deliver the best possible outcomes you can. Make sure that all of those things align with each other and make sure that these things happen. We're big believers in scorecards. We talked about the Toyota Way, which is a book. Another book we love a lot is Traction and their EOS system. You know, the idea of having the dashboard on the car and what you measure moves, big believers in that. You know, we've seen it before too, with even things that we started implementing this year once we went remote, is once we start tracking something, it's no mistake that it starts to track in the direction that we want it to track. You know, it's that concept of, if I just want to lose weight, I can say I just want to lose weight, but what are the steps that I need to take? What are the things I can track to see if I'm making the right progress or not? Especially for a business, outside of your paycheck, outside of the revenue, outside of the table stake stuff that should just be natural if you're doing a good job. What are the smaller pieces that you can adjust in the meantime that you can hopefully get on top of before it comes a larger problem?
I want to just sort of hammer a point on this slide home. Clearly communicate the steps for every process in the business. For everything that you want done, clearly communicate that. And I'll tell you why. Our business relies on young people. We live and die by young people. And it's
I am literally and figuratively a graybeard in our industry.
Yeah.
I'm a 39-year-old guy. I'm older than everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I started in the advertising business, we were still, making newspaper ads. And I know that newspaper ads are still a thing, but just thinking about my time in the industry, where I started as an interactive designer and what that meant, to now what it means to be a designer or a developer and all the different platforms. At 42, I am an old man in this business. But it's not that we're not curious. It's not that we don't want to go do the research. I think you guys all know, you get to a certain age in life and other commitments start to take over the time where you had free time to be that interested and curious about all things. And you have to narrow your focus and curiosity down to a few things. And so we rely on young people who are really excited about a lot of things to come in and figure out what they're going to narrow their focus on over time. One of the great things that our school system does is it makes it very clear how to be successful. If you do your homework, if you show up for class, if you follow the instructions, you get a good grade. Most businesses, they get young people in there and they say, okay, I'm going to need you to post some social media for us. I'll be back at the end of the week. Good luck. No clear steps, no clear expectations, and they're burned out in a couple months because they're like, I don't really know what my boss wants me to do. He comes in every Friday and yells at me, and every Monday he says, hey, I need all these social media posts. Terrible, man. You have to create those steps that allow them to find the success and the things that really light them up, and let them tell you what they want to pursue as they grow with you. You're only going to be able to do that if you're setting very clear expectations about what needs to be done, how to get it done, how to be successful, and what that success looks like. The other thing is, if you do that, if you invest in that infrastructure, you as a business leader get a whole lot more time to go do the things that you are passionate about or that you want to go learn and be curious about, so that you can bring new energy back into the business. which is really what your job is as a visionary or integrator, is finding new ways to be effective and efficient and letting the people that work for you find new ways further down the chain.
And even having those structures set up, and it sounds like every meeting we have does have a specific structure where we're going through, these specific steps. Every client we have, every internal meeting we have, every department we have has a dashboard so that we know what success and what failure looks like before it hits that revenue number or lack thereof. So it's important to make sure that we're tracking those things along the way so that we know, using the car analogy, we know that we need to change our oil before the engine drops out one day when we're on a road trip. We need to track those things in an organization.
And we're not unique. I think we can click on this. We'll show you one of the reports that we look at a lot. Every week we have a burn down chart where we look at our sprint and we sort of figure out how efficient we were. Did we get everything that we said we planned to get done? But this is how we look at things for a quarter. And we're actually showing you real numbers here. This is week 6 of Q4, and we just to sort of show you the documentation. It's really clear. Here are the clients and their quarterly production schedules, because we never know when a client's going to sign up. It's not like I can say everything starts at the first day of the first month of the quarter. It starts in the middle. So we have to have all of this math built into, what does on track or off track look like? Sometimes we're doing more for one client and less for another. So that all changes. So once again, clear communication. It's like idiot proof. You come over here and you see how much have we completed. Is that on track or is it off track? It even shows you how many tasks or projects need to be completed in order to get it on track. Or maybe we can just get it to at risk. And then it even automates some of our status updates.
Well, and this is important too. We wanted to show you a real life dashboard because for all the things we're saying, we're definitely not perfect. You see the red on there. You see the off track. These things are always going to happen. We can sit up here and tell you how great your systems need to be and how well ours are figured out.
Nope.
No, they're not. This is why we always have to have that entrepreneur or that startup mindset, is because we need to not be married to our system so much that we're stubborn about changing. If we continue to see these issues pop up, guess what? We need to change something in the business or just get used to failing. And I don't like failing, and no one in our business does. And nobody in y'all's business likes that either. So we wanted to show a real life example to show it works a little bit. So we're not perfect either. We're always trying to figure this stuff out and make sure that our factory can be the best factory it can be.
The other side of it too is, that idea of your boss comes in and yells at you on a Friday. This is a way for you and your boss to have alignment about where we're at. For you to be able to explain, or for your people to be able to explain why something's behind. And for you to be able to ask productive questions instead of just yelling, why is all this stuff not happening? Well, okay, I can look at the clients and I can ask particular questions and get the feedback that, hey, this person's been on vacation for the last 10 days and they've been unreachable, and the things that we've sent them to be approved haven't gotten approved. That's why everything's so backed up. And then it also has sort of built-in escalation. So if Samantha has a problem getting a hold of somebody, she can escalate it to Greer, who has a different relationship with the client and can go and have a more serious conversation. And if that's not productive, Greer can escalate it to Jordan. And if Jordan can't get the result, he can escalate it to me, and we can make decisions like, do we need to have a real come to Jesus with this client? Is this a client that is productive for our culture? And do we need to think about replacing them with somebody?
Yeah, and do we need to look at, is the tactic broken? Is the strategy broken? Or is the vision ineffective or off? And as you go up, those changes and those pivots, for a word that's been overused the past couple of years, but I still think is important, are a lot harder as you go up the chart. But it's important to kind of put everything through that filter. But I hope that somebody got a little nugget of anything they could implement right away. I lost the presentation, but the last one was a thank you slide anyway. So I would encourage anybody that's watching this or that's here, if you have any questions, you have a great resource here in the job that these guys do. We're privileged to be kind of a part of their little world, and we hope that we helped somebody think about the work a different way, if nothing else. So with that, you guys have any questions or?
Yeah.
You started out by alluding to the fact it's very important for employees to be owners, and you moved on, explaining Kaizen methodology, and touched on change management. How do you address a change management plan from an owner mentality with the employees?
We encourage them to own to treat their little responsibilities like a business unit. They track their own budgets. So the first thing that happens when a client signs an agreement with us is we build what's called an agreement workbook in our shop. And everybody has some version of this, a budget doc, big production plan, whatever. Most agencies I've worked in, that's a document that's kept under lock and key. You never want the people to see what you're making on this and what the margins are, because God forbid they come and ask you for more money for their very valuable time and services. And we operate completely different there. We say, here's your budget to get the work done. It's based upon our desired profitability. If you can get it done for less, that's more money at the end of the year that we can divvy up for other things, whether that is additional training, conference spending, bonuses, additional salary, more teammates. And really, Jake can attest to this, they get a lot of voice in agency in what that is, because we're constantly asking them. And that's kind of a servant leadership mindset, is we're not here to run the company. We're here to serve the people that are running the company. And the way that we do that is we try to be as transparent as we can about all of the things that they need in order to run their little business unit. So they've got like I said, they've got their own little business unit. They manage finding their resources. They're able to pay them whatever needs to be paid as long as they're underneath the budget that we've set up for them. They know what the budget allocation is because we tell them. We literally about once a quarter do a presentation that says how we make money. And we have a nice little slide that's got a $100 bill, and we chop it up into sections, and we say, this much is what we chop up to get the work done. And that goes directly to you, and here's how it gets split out. Here is what adjusted gross income looks like. From that adjusted gross income, here's what we pay in salaries and benefits. Here's what we've set aside for overhead. Here's what we've booked for profit. And then here's what we plan to do with that profit this year. We talk about that in annual planning meeting. Does that sort of answer your question? I mean, we try to give them a whole lot of agency and ownership over their little business unit. And as they grow there and we notice interests or we notice particular expertises, we'll sort of say, hey, would you like to try this? What do you think if we did it this way? And it's really interesting what happens when you operate that way. Yeah, sure. That was a great question. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
What tip would you give to employers or anyone, mostly employers, to approach their supervisor who they think should relinquish some control?
Always come with solutions, never with problems. So if you have an idea about something that you would like to take ownership of, come with the plan in place. Hey, I think that I am ready to do this. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's how I want you to measure me. And I've already mapped out the process by which I'm going to do it. And if they still won't relinquish control, I mean, that's a symptom of a bad manager, from my perspective. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah, it just means that your vision for your position and what you want to accomplish in your career is opposite from them, and it doesn't. Just means that that's probably not a fit.
But my hope is that if you're willing to put in that work and you're willing to sort of lay out a vision for where you can take that and the growth that you see, I'm going to do whatever I can to support and let you run with that, because you just took a major headache off of my plate. And obviously you have given this a lot more thought than I have, and so you are best suited to be there. We call it face close to the metal. I am not qualified to make most of the decisions in our business. I'll be really honest with you, because I'm not close enough to them. I go to client meetings about once a quarter, and it's really just to say, hey, how you doing? It's been a while. Yeah, we should get together and play golf. How are the kids? Hey, are they doing a good job for you? My job is not to, is this social post correct for this audience in this campaign? If I have to get down into that level, I'm certainly qualified to, but if I do, we got bigger issues. And that's where I need to be focused on. Yeah.
Since you guys do have employees, on one place, how someone has, how do we hold them to their expectations? If they don't meet their
Yep, that's a
expectations. And if it's week that you're looking at this, it's markers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, with us being remote and even having people that we don't meet, like, how do we make sure that they're held accountable? We build scorecards for everything. And we make sure that those kind of scorecards or deliverables are agreed upon really early on in the process. So making sure that those expectations are very clear. The same way that they have expectations that, I see an old friend just walked in. What's up, Mac? Distracted. The same way that they have expectations on what they should get out of their job, what their paycheck is, what their hours are, what the holidays off are. It's our job to put together a really robust, more so than just like an employment agreement or a job description. But what does success look like weekly, monthly? And yeah, we review them weekly in our shop. We've got broader kind of company scorecards that everyone looks at, and then each department has their own individual scorecards so that we can see before there's a failure point, okay, are we tracking in the right direction or not?
Our hope is that those allow us to coach, and we never get to the point of having to have those really candid conversations.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not performing to expectations. The hope is that we're noticing a trend very early, and we're asking questions like, what's going on? Maybe it's something at home. Maybe it is a contractor that we don't know about has sort of ghosted us. Are we not providing you enough budget to get the work done? We're hoping that we find out those things long before we get to that point where we're having to say, this is really not working and we've got to find another alternative.
Yeah.
But the other side of that too is what amazes me, and we talk to lots of business owners, so I feel uniquely, and I think Jordan would agree with me, we feel uniquely qualified to make these statements. There's tons of really great information about how to manage your team day to day. I mean, just spend any time reading about, agile management. A daily huddle just to check in. They'll even tell you what questions to ask. What did you get done yesterday? What are you working on today? What's blocking you? Those 3 questions asked daily, well, that'll take care of about 40 or 50% of the whole deal. The hardest part that we find is sort of some of those scoring rubrics.
Yeah.
Because you'll try a lot, and some of them will be meaningful for a little while, but like any organism, and an organization, a business is just an organism. It lives and it grows and it breathes and it contracts and it changes all the time. You have to know when it's important to change. So when I first started at iProv, the most important number we had was our deadlines met versus deadlines set. So it was every week. I wanted everybody to get in the habit of we have this number of things to get done each week. How close do we get to completing all of them? And my goal was 80%. If we could always get 80% of what we just planned to do for the week done, I was going to be very happy. Because that 20% is sort of margin. You got clients that won't call you back that week. It can get moved somewhere else. People get sick. So that was really important for a long time until we started ramping up our pace. And whereas when I first started, we averaged about 50 to 60 tasks across 10 people getting done, tasks or projects a week, to now we're getting closer to 120, 125 with half the people. Some of that is better resource utilization and management, and we're finding new ways to get the work done better. Some of it is we're finding better ways to work. And so now we consistently hit that 80% all the time. That number's not as important. It tells me we have to look at something else. And so that's where that other scorecard that we looked at was capped. So obviously we know how to work and we know how to work efficiently. Are we working on the right things? And so now we look at every client's production schedule. Are we getting the things done that we said we would get done in the time frame that we needed to get them done in? And so that's the hard part. the day-to-day management part is really pretty easy. Just be a good human. And
Yeah.
sort of get what you need to feel comfortable letting them go be an owner of their own department.